Okay, it looks like we're holding steady, so I'll go ahead and get the meeting started. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to
to
the
the
flag
flag
of the United States
of
America and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty,
justice
justice for all.
for all. Hey, good evening, everyone. We've got some new faces here, and we've got a fairly short agenda tonight. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the July 2nd, 2021 meeting. Do we have any questions to those minutes?
No.
Okay. Could I get a motion, please, for approval?
I move. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Kristen.
Motion to approve. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, great.
Second.
Excellent. And we'll do roll call. Julia,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
and Shannon. Aye. Okay, so that's the first agenda item. The next item, we have reports for the school committee. First up is Dr. Klingeman.
Hey everyone, good evening. I just wanted to introduce and welcome two new faces that are at our meeting tonight. So we have Dr. Beth Wilcox here, who is our new interim assistant superintendent.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Glad you're here. And then we have Mr. Tony Keaty, he's actually been to, I think he attended another meeting, but he's our new human resources director. And so welcome, Tony.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all.
Hello.
And then I just wanted to bring up, I think my comment might kind of go into Katie Blake's announcement too. We just wanted to talk about the recommendation to return to in-person school committee meetings in September. Katie's been working on the audio visual end of things with Mike Woodford to determine how we can be able to meet in person in Alden 104, possibly, or in another space, and also be able to stream the meeting live. And so with that, Katie's probably going to talk a little bit about that, but I just wanted to mention the way we could handle public comment in this forum would be that if members of the community wanted to email any public comment to the school committee chair ahead of time, we would be able to read the public comment in that manner. Or we could have people, of course, attend in person as they have in the past to be able to make public comment that way. So there would be two options for people to make public comment, either in writing or by being there in person, but we wouldn't be able to have public comment be virtual any longer. We wouldn't be simultaneously running a Zoom session along with the live broadcast of the school committee meeting. So we're hoping to be able to get that all squared away to be able to shift back to in-person. But I wanted to mention that tonight so that the committee could have some time to think about it, as well as the community if anyone had questions. But that's all from me, and perhaps Katie can kind of piggyback on that conversation that I just started when it gets to be her turn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Blake, you're up next for reports.
Sure. So just to follow up on that point, I have been working with Mike Woodford just to talk about what we would need from a technical perspective if we were to transition to in-person meetings in the future. So it does seem like, and one of the main concerns that we had brought up to Mike was really just the ability to be able to live stream our meetings. So previously, in the past, what we had done is we had recorded the video and then the in-person video, and then we would just post that to the website, very similar to the process that we have today. But we wouldn't have those meetings be available to the public to be viewed live. And that's something that we're really looking into to be able to provide that going forward. So from a technical perspective, it does seem like there is a little bit of work and maybe a small expense that will be related to having those meetings available via live stream. So we're still working through that, but certainly I had asked Mr. Woodford if there was kind of an ETA on the timing of when he thought it would be possible for us to return to in-person meetings, if that was in fact the direction that we wanted to move towards. And he said it could be a possibility, you know, as short as potentially a few weeks to potentially as long as a month to have all of the functionality ready to go. So just to be able to provide that update to the committee. And certainly if there's any questions in regards to that, I'm happy to answer the questions. And if there's any questions that are technical in nature, I can of course follow up with Mr. Woodford and then provide an update at a future meeting. I also just wanted to bring to your attention, we have processed a number of warrants. We're still trying to close up all of the expenditures for fiscal year 21. So since our last meeting, we have processed 3 warrants, and those are all with a date of June 30th. So those are all tied to fiscal year 21. It was warrant 53, and that warrant amount was $122,646.04. It was also warrant number 54, and that total was $169,055.58. And then the last warrant with the June 30th date was warrant number 55, and that warrant amount was $86,092.02. And so if we have any outstanding expenditures for fiscal year 21, at this point, those expenditures are encumbered, and then we will pay for those as part of the warrant process with our fiscal year 22 bill, so they won't be separated out going forward. We have processed 1 warrant for fiscal year 22, and that was warrant number 2. The date on that was July 9th, and that warrant amount was $51,965.53. And so my last update for tonight, I just wanted to remind everyone that the deadline for proposals for the request for a proposal for the RFP for the superintendent search firm is July 21st at 10 a.m. So that's this Wednesday. I have not received any proposals as of yet, but I know sometimes those proposals do come in somewhat last minute. So I'll keep you all updated when I do receive in any documentation.
Right. I question on the live streaming. That's consistent with how is that how the Board of Selectmen is doing their public comment currently?
So I'm not sure how they're doing it. I know at one time there was a question from some of the other, I think potentially it was the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
Had expressed some interest in using some of the technology that we had purchased earlier in the year. I don't know if we had referenced it at previous meetings, but it's the OWL cameras, which would, it would live stream, and you could also see some of the attendees. So I'm not sure, but I'm not sure the process that the board is using right now. So
Okay, so that's something I can follow up on. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what the other committees are doing. And I know we all have different technology available to us depending on which room people are using. So I know that plays into this.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a good point, and I can absolutely ask Mike Woodford too if there's any technology that we'd be able to leverage maybe with some of the different town departments.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions on that topic? I know I think we're all, based on previous meetings, I think we're all eager to get to in-person meetings if we can. The Zoom thing is tough on all of us, I think. So thank you, that's exciting update. And then the RFP, I did want to ask a question because we're going to be, our next meeting as currently scheduled is going to be August 5th, and that will actually be interviews. And it sounds like maybe this isn't going to be an issue, but I was thinking, if we had like 6 or 7, I just wanted to make sure we all agreed on the process to how you get down to like 3 to interview. If we needed to have a meeting to do that, or if we can do that via the evaluation process that's within the RFP, which is kind of what I was thinking was going to happen. But Katie, I don't know, you've been through more of these RFPs than we have. If you have a recommendation on how that would work.
Yeah, so I think if we do receive in any proposals from any potential bidders, we did ask that they provide us enough copies that each member of the school committee would be able to have an original copy. So I would certainly, if I received those in to the office, I could certainly distribute those to everyone. And then I think each person individually should be able to go through that evaluation criteria.
Mhm.
And be able to evaluate based off of that defined set of criteria. I think the only thing that may create some an effort of coordination between the board is with the references. I know there's been some discussion about asking very similar questions,
Mhm.
make sure that we're all kind of evaluating based off of the same set of criteria or the same set of questions.
Okay.
So I would definitely think that there may be some work that needs to go into that. I don't know if it's just a matter of maybe potentially providing a set of questions that everyone was able to use.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Yeah. And then if people, we could do that. And then if people have significant questions about the questions, we could
Right.
schedule a short meeting, just to walk through that so we can have open deliberations about that if needed. Okay.
Mhm.
Will we,
Yeah.
sorry,
Go ahead. Yeah.
will we need worksheets to do the evaluations? Because we end up with a score for each proposal. And then the top scoring proposals are then brought forward for interviews. So are you going to be able to have time to do that for us, Katie, or do you want one of us to take care of that, or how would you like to handle
So I
that?
think in the document, and I can provide you all with a copy of the document, it has the evaluation criteria. And
Right.
underneath it, it lists out highly advantageous. So I would say if each committee member could just circle their score under each one of the evaluation criteria, and then I could certainly be the point person to collect all of that evaluation data, and then just try to put that all kind of together in a chart or a scoring sheet, and then provide the results back to you all. I could certainly.
So each proposal will have a copy of the RFP attached to it? Okay, understood.
Yes, and that will
Okay.
have the evaluation criteria to you.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And I do seem to recall from the last time we went through this that I think the proposals did come in on the last day, and I think we got like 2 or 3 or maybe 4. So I'm not surprised that none will come in, especially given the timing in the summer. But if we don't get any by Wednesday, there are 3 or 4 that we know are that have been, top of the radar list in the past and that we've talked about in this meeting before. What happens when the proposal deadline lapses? Can we send it back out to several or send it back out to all just to prompt them? Is there a process there?
So I think there's several options. So you can certainly go through the RFP process again to formally send it out, to repost, and then to extend the deadline. I think we also, because of the range of what we think the proposed services are going to cost, you could certainly, if you wanted to target 3 or 4 vendors, and if you feel that these are 3 or 4 vendors that the committee could potentially work with, you could certainly send out a scope of work directly to those vendors and then just ask them for a price proposal. And so that's just kind of that quicker process where we talked about just soliciting the quotes, but it does lend itself to, you do not get to evaluate them based off of their criteria. It's strictly a price. So
you have to accept the lowest
price,
price.
yes.
Yeah.
And so I think in that circumstance, if you have 3 vendors that you think are 3 pretty comparable vendors, then that's an okay process to use, and it certainly is a little bit, it has a quicker timeline than reposting the RFP. And then the last option, of course, is just to go with any of the vendors. We do not have to go through the formalized procurement process of an RFP or soliciting quotes if it's an interstate vendor. So you could certainly just reach out to interstate vendors and ask them for, you could provide them with that scope of work and ask them to provide a quote.
Okay. And do we have a list of those?
I can put together a list for you. Sure.
Okay. I mean, you don't have to do it until after Wednesday, but that's probably a good next step.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions? Anything I'm missing you guys want to add? Okay. Okay. And the next item is actually a chair report, and that was going to be one of my chair report. I wanted to ask about the RFP. Did anybody else have something? I think Kristen, you mentioned that you might want to cover something. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a few comments, I guess, questions too. I just wanted, first off, to thank all the parents out there who've been emailing us and contacting us. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to reach out and share your thoughts. I appreciate the feedback. I also wanted to highlight a few things that I think the committee's been doing that, I appreciate the time that they've been put into it. So Julie and Matt have been going through policy review and bringing them to the committee for our feedback. And I know we have a few to talk about tonight too. And I think it's really great that we're looking at them to make sure that they're up to date and addressing all the issues that need to be addressed. Matt's suggestion, and I know they're working on it, the whistleblowing policy that provides, in your words, Matt, a predictable and repeatable, right? Pattern. And I'm looking forward to that coming out. I think that'll be helpful. Now that we have our HR director, Mr. Keaty, up and running, I hope to follow up with him on, we brought it up, or I may have mentioned it, and I know Shannon had a comment too about it, the 360 review to be included at the end of the year superintendent review. And I look forward to this so that we can get more information from the people that work underneath the superintendent so that we can hear the wonderful things they do, opportunities for growth. I think that'll provide us with a much better picture. So I'll follow up with Mr. Keaty at some point about that. And then just 2 things that I'd like to bring up to the committee to kind of get your opinion on, to see if this is something that we could do or you'd be interested in. I would love to have some sort of end of year review from an independent source for parents and students to provide feedback. Something as simple as rate your year, rate your student's year on a scale of 1 to 10. What went really well? And again, what are some opportunities for growth? I think it's important to provide a safe, anonymous, somewhat anonymous environment for feedback. This independent company would compile that information just to provide us more global feedback and kind of show us as a committee, is there policies that we need to address, or what type of things should we kind of be focusing on? Again, this is something that is just an idea that I wanted to throw out there, and I would love some feedback on that and see if that's anything that you guys would be interested in or not. Again, this isn't punitive in nature. It's very just so that we have a good way of people providing us feedback. Are we doing a good job as your school committee? How can we do better? What are some issues that you're seeing that maybe we don't know about? The second thing I hope you guys like, because I'm kind of excited about it. When I worked at New England Baptist Hospital, they had a program called Bravograms that allowed patients, workers, bosses, et cetera, to nominate anyone who went above and beyond, provided exceptional care, or helped someone in an unexpected way. And they would just call a hotline and say, I want to nominate Joe Smith. He did X, Y, and Z. And then Joe Smith would receive a really pretty piece of paper with, so-and-so nominated you and this is why. And I would like to implement a similar program for staff, teachers, and administrators to nominate or to be nominated. Anyone can nominate. So parents, students can nominate a teacher or staff member. If one teacher helped out another teacher and they want to be nominated, they could do that. And I want to call them the Duxbury District Bravo Grams, or we can do playing off of Alden's Dragon Deeds, Duxbury District Dragon Deed. And I would just work with central office to kind of have a place where people could click, send me an email, and I would send anyone who's been nominated an email. Congratulations, you've been nominated by X, Y, and Z. You're doing a great job. And then once a month, I would just pick somebody to be represented or to mention at our school committee meeting. So I just think it's always nice to get good feedback. And I think this would be a way at our level school committee just to provide our district with some more positive feedback. So that's all I had to say. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, no, thanks, Kristen. Yeah, I think let's, I don't know if anybody who has feedback. I love the ideas, Kristen. The one thing my brain goes to is that we need to figure out if the piece, especially the certificates or whatever we call them, the good deeds, whether that fits really within the school committee remit. And I understand absolutely where you're coming from in terms of positive feedback is always good, but we also really need to be careful that we're not kind of crossing our signals at all. So let me talk with you a little bit about that more in detail, and we can get some probably outside guidance on whether that's appropriate for a school committee to have that type of a setup. And also, you know, Dr. Klingelman, we can probably talk also offline in terms of, I think the school does a lot of things like that already. So maybe that's just part of an update in terms of recognitions and awards that the school is already doing for folks. So
I didn't want it's not something like an award. It's more of just, hey, great job on this.
thank you. Yeah, it's like a thank you, right?
You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
We see you. So.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, I mean, maybe we should put both of these items on a future agenda so that folks can come prepared to talk about them a little bit. I think, you know, the end of year review, when you first described it, I didn't quite understand what it was until right at the end, you kind of tied it back to the school committee. So it's a review of the school committee versus of the student's year. Because when you first started describing it, I thought you were talking about like, you know, like parents doing an anonymous survey about how the year with the school went. Is it
Well, just like,
specific or more broad? Because I know we do a lot of different surveys with parents. So I just want to make sure we're not.
I just think it would be a good idea to have like an independent source to collate and compile, because I know there's always the concerns of providing feedback and, you know, some parents are concerned about providing that feedback. They don't want their names associated with it. So if we have an independent source to provide that feedback to on a more global scale, I just thought it might just open another line of communication, but it's just an idea. You guys
Yeah, no, it's good.
doing this a lot longer than I have. So
No, it's good. It's good to come up with all these ideas. And I mean, so Dr. Klingelman, maybe you can give some thought to, because like I said, I know we do a lot of different types of surveys right now, and I think they're all anonymous. So I just want to make sure that
We definitely do surveys at the end of the year, and we always just have to be careful with the collective bargaining agreement for the teachers that the teachers are all expected to collect feedback from their own individual students and families, and that feedback is then used to guide their own professional practice goals the following year. So that's something we oversee as administrators with the teaching staff. As administrators, we seek feedback from those we serve. But I think to Kristen's point, sometimes people, when we're developing our school council surveys, families may not always feel that what they're being asked is truly anonymous. So I think that maybe when we're looking at our school improvement plan development and we look at what types of end of the year surveys or even mid-year surveys we're sending out, and how can we ensure that we're getting really good feedback from people that they feel that they can be honest, maybe not about specific teacher performance, because that wouldn't be appropriate, but just about people's families' experiences in general. So I think that I think we can take that suggestion and feedback when we're developing our school improvement plans next month in August, and really look at how we can better survey our families to be able to get feedback that's actionable and really a true measure of how people are feeling without having to put names on it. We do struggle a bit with anonymous surveys because sometimes they can be pretty harsh and hurtful when we do that. But maybe if we looked at some Panorama we use for social and emotional learning surveys of our students, and I'm guessing that Panorama might also do some surveys for feedback from families. So I think that's something that we can explore with some of the programs we use for surveying our students. Maybe we can expand that for families. So appreciate the suggestions, and we can definitely think about that as we move forward and plan for the year.
Yeah, I thought I was on mute. I'm not. Thank God I wasn't talking to myself. I think it's I think it's a good idea. I have a couple of thoughts on it. It might be helpful, Kristen, to just put a couple of things in writing in an email that we can consider, so that like we can look at it offline and take a look at what ideas you're thinking about. So that we're not just kind of running around. Because this wasn't even on the agenda. So I'm thinking like maybe you can put something in writing and then we can consider in a future meeting, like just, considering something that we can begin with and see where it goes. One of the reasons why I like the idea is that, so a few meetings ago when we were, I think Danielle, you were talking about some of the new professional development trainings that you were putting into place in light of the recent, the two recent situations. And I had commented on like culture. And I was thinking about that a lot since that meeting. And, we've been getting letters at school committee. I've been talking to people in the community, and there is a concern that I hear around a perceived culture of like, sort of backlash. That's what I kept like writing down in my notes, like sort of like backlash culture with a question mark, where I do think that there's a perception from some people where there's like some reluctance to give feedback and to air their concerns to administration and staff because they feel that they're somehow going to be punished for it. And whether that's reality or not, that is, I think, a perception. I've seen it in some of the letters. I know you guys have too. And so I don't know if that's where your idea is coming from when you talk about like a third-party vendor, Kristen, but it might be interesting to see if there are other districts who have been able to figure out how to get, pretty unvarnished and blunt feedback from the community in a place where they don't feel like there's going to be any sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? I keep saying backlash, but it's like a
Repercussion?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I wonder if there are companies and organizations out there that help to do that, given the fact that the district does have to be careful of how they do surveys, and they have to be, and the fact that they do have to be sensitive to collective bargaining and other stuff. So I just wonder if there's other companies that have been able to sort of crack that nut. And if there are, we should look at them. So Kristen, it might be interesting for you to take a look at what some other districts have been doing and just jot your thoughts down, and then we can consider it to put on an upcoming agenda. That would be my suggestion.
And I also want to again highlight that it's not necessarily punitive. I really want feedback, feedback is positive too. So just wanted to emphasize.
Great. All right, good discussion. So, sorry, I gotta get back to my agenda again. So the next item, now we're moving on to discussion items. And the first one listed is the interim superintendent contract. So we'll vote on that after we address the two policies that are on the agenda for tonight, but do have an update that that we've reached an agreement on the interim superintendent, and it's an addendum, 1-year contract from July 1st to 2021 to June 30th, 2022, at 190,000. So that's what we'll be voting on tonight. And that's pretty much the update from that. So then Julia and Matt, I'll turn it over to you for the next 2 items, the policy discussions about the JEB entrance age and the first reading of the CEB Athletic Advisory Council.
I'll let Julia, I'll just let you go ahead and do that. But before you do, all I was going to say is I might have missed something, but don't we have a second reading for the policy subcommittee and that? Because didn't we run that by the attorneys and get sort of a fresh copy? And weren't we supposed to do a second reading for those?
For which?
Policy subcommittee, public comment?
Oh, yes. I'll have to check. Sorry, I've dropped the ball on that. Because we did get feedback from the attorneys after the first reading. So yes, I think you're right.
Okay, so maybe we can make sure that that's on that August meeting. And the only other thing, so that we can be thinking about it between now and then, is Danielle, one of the things that we had suggested in those policies was some updates to the website. So I want to make sure that we just have room to talk about that, because that could also just lead to some sort of good discussion of around what protocols we should be using if we have suggestions around how to reflect either policy or other stuff on the school website, because I'm a little unclear on like sort of the ownership of that stuff. It doesn't really land on policy, so it's not really us, but it does land on sort of communication, which we should all be working on. So why don't we table that till the next meeting? But Shannon, happy to talk with you offline about how we reflect that in the agenda.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and how we divvy up the meetings too, because if we end up interviewing a couple of vendors, that'll make for a long meeting. So let's figure that out offline. Okay.
Would you like me to share my screen, Matt and Julia, if we go over the JEB entrance age first, or?
Yeah.
Is that working? Are you able to?
Yeah.
I can also open, it's whatever you prefer, but I could open the, I think you can see where the edits were.
Yeah, so we started with entrance age. We already had a policy. So we started with the policy we had. And Mrs. Wiesehan talked us through how we arrived at the existing policy. And then we referenced the MASC policy, JEB, and came up with the changes which are underlined. So yes, so the way the policy was written, there was no scope for children who were younger than 5 years old to be admitted to kindergarten. There was scope for children who were older to be admitted, kind of have delayed enrollment, but there was no early enrollment under the previous policy or the existing policy. So that's the what's underlined in number 1 changes that.
And is that based on the MASC, the standard language?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it remains at the school's discretion. Whether to bring forward enrollment in kindergarten or to delay it if at the parent's request. Obviously, the parent's request, if they want to delay, that's their choice, but early enrollment is at the school's discretion.
So I think I can see you guys are still reading it, but I think sort of the bottom line is that there are cases it's just a few cases, but there are understandable cases where there are parents who have children who are just like a skosh too young. They could be like we have examples of like where they're a day too young. And because we had nothing in the policy, the response was just like, I'm really sorry. I know you're bummed out, but like we can't enroll your child, even though there seems to be a lot of evidence to show that they're ready for kindergarten. So this is just a matter of taking the MASC language and using it to give the decision-making capability to the school. So the school can use whatever criteria they want. And what they'll probably do, from talking to Erin and stuff, is like they'll, interview the parent. They'll take a look if the kid goes to preschool, what's the feedback from the preschool in terms of what the strengths are and everything. And if they're really close, then, the principal can use discretion to just say, okay, yeah, we'll let her in. Whereas we just couldn't do that before.
I guess my question is that for number 2, it says they must be 6 years of old on or before September 1st. So if they go to kindergarten, but they don't turn 5 until September 2nd, are they going to be able to matriculate into first grade? Because according to this, they have to be.
No, it's for seeking admit. That's why I changed the wording in number
seek the
2.
initial admission.
It's their
Okay.
initial admission. Once they're in kindergarten, then the sequence is there. But it's for
Sorry.
children who aren't in kindergarten.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I had asked I think when we were planning to look at this policy, I think I asked Danielle, what the lead time would have to be for the school. And you had said something like, there really doesn't have to be much lead time at all. So hopefully if we get to our second reading and vote on this policy, there may be some parents now who, have already made a request who aren't going to sort of miss the boat, which would be my hope. And obviously I'm sure it would be their hope as well.
And I was just curious, if this gets approved, could the administrators and Ms. Weaselheim put something kind of, I know it's at the school's discretion, but kind of put together a list of some of the things that Matt was saying, like the performance, teachers review, preschool, just something more documented so that it's not solely subjective, that we have like 5 things that they need to kind of submit or that they're looking at, just so it's consistent.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. It's actually one that we talked about, Kristen. I actually suggested we not do that, and it's going to sound weird, but the reason why I would suggest we don't do it is that I have like this concern that if we give too much of sort of like a roadmap to people, that might sort of up a ton of requests. You know what I mean? So I find that the MASC language is kind of really wise as it's written. It's just like, we're going to be taking a look at some stuff. So it's at our discretion. And I feel like if we try to institutionalize the criteria, then that could just lead to like too much back and forth. Well, you said you were going to do this. You said you were going to do this. You said you're going to do this. You said you're going to do this. I did all this stuff. Why not? And I just kind of almost feel like less is more in a case like this, because it just gives more flexibility to the school to make an informed judgment call, but it is a judgment call.
Okay.
That's just my 2 cents.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so this is considered the first reading, right? For
Yep.
this one?
So then we'll send it to the lawyers. Just have them check it, and then it'll be ready for us for next time. And then the Athletic Advisory Council.
So I got a question on this from somebody earlier, and again, I'll let you go with this, Julia, but like, this isn't a policy. So this didn't come up in our subcommittee, in our policy subcommittee. So I just want to make
No,
sure that we're differentiating what this is.
Dr. Klingeman is, and I believe Dr. Klingeman and Mr. Donovan.
So Matt,
Um,
this wasn't discussed at your policy subcommittee meeting just because we drafted a draft based on the School Wellness Advisory Council.
Yep.
policy, But certainly this could be discussed at a policy subcommittee meeting if necessary, but
Thank you. I'm cool with it not. I just wanted to state for the record that this is separate and distinct from the policy subcommittee. So yeah, no, totally cool.
okay, yeah, so this one, we had put together the Athletic Advisory Council this spring after we had kind of had some upheaval and things going on in our athletic department that were of concern. So we wanted to just make sure that there was opportunities for feedback from the community, the same way that we have our School Wellness Advisory Council that serves as a mechanism for parents and community members and school staff to be able to make decisions about our health curriculum and about wellness initiatives that we take part in. And we also review some of the youth risk behavior survey data as part of that School Wellness Advisory Council. And it seemed as though the Athletic Advisory Council that we were proposing was similar to that School Wellness Advisory Council. And it works well having that as a school committee policy. So tonight we're just presenting to you language that is similar to our School Wellness Advisory Council. And we have it here on the screen. We wanted to make sure that there was a process for membership, because we have received a lot of questions from the community about who's on this council and how do you get selected. I volunteered to be on it. Why am I not on it? So we wanted to make sure that it was fair and unbiased and that there were members on this council that were on the council based on their role, as well as opportunities for students and parents and community members who may be interested in serving to be on this council on a rotating basis, much like parents serve on school councils or on the School Wellness Advisory Committee. So as you can see here, the role for this council would be to advise the athletic director in reviewing and proposing changes to the high school student athletic handbook, participate in screening prospective candidates for the athletic program, coaches and staff. That has already started happening with some of the positions that we are in the process of filling right now. For example, with the football coach, we went through the similar process of screening, using this council to assist with screening candidates. We also are thinking this council would work with the athletic director in developing expectations for student athletes' conduct. And I think that our expectations for student athletes' conduct is the same as what we would have for any of our students who are participating in any kind of co-curricular activity, whether it's robotics or whether it is a music program. Our student athletes are held to the same standard that when you're outside of Duxbury, we want you to be behaving with the same level of respect that you would inside our school district, but also when you're in other communities, whether it's an athletic event or a competition for any other type of co-curricular. We would like to have consistent expectations for what our coaches' conduct will be. And I know we will be having this committee will be talking about what the best way to be doing coaching evaluations moving forward. That's not something we need to decide tonight, but I think having this advisory council will be key in that discussion. Also providing feedback and recommendations on other issues relevant to the athletic program. And so the membership of this council would be 3 Duxbury High School students that would be recommended by the student council, maybe through a nomination basis. And that's something that we could consult with Mr. Donovan on the best way for the student members to be selected. 1 parent recommended by the school council, 1 coach from the high school that would be appointed by Mr. Donovan or the school principal, 1 assistant principal, the DEI coordinator for the district, 1 member of school committee, which would likely be appointed when you do your reorganization, right, Shannon? Would that take the same meeting?
Yeah.
Director of Business and Finance, and then the director of the Duxbury Recreation Department. Okay, and so the rest of this wording is taken from the policy CEA. So the term of office for those members not designated by title will be 1 year. The appointment of new members will be made at the beginning of each school year, with the exception of the school committee liaison, which I just mentioned would happen during the reorganization that takes place after town elections in March. And if a member resigns, an interim appointment will be made by the athletic director to complete the term. And much like the School Wellness Advisory Council, I believe that policy states that that council will meet 4 to 5 times during the school year. Often we end up meeting on a monthly basis during the school calendar. Similar to that, this council will meet at least 4 times. I'm guessing that in this coming year, they might meet a little bit more frequently than that. And then the Athletic Advisory Council would be advisory to the athletic director, the DHS administration, and the superintendent. The AD as chair is responsible for communicating the council's activities and advice to the administration, superintendent, and school committee. The channel for communication with the council is the AD as the chair. There will be minutes kept of the meeting, and they will be disseminated to the school committee, DHS administration, and superintendent. We will also have minutes linked to our website under the athletics program. And an annual report will be made to the school committee. Katie has been taking part, and so has Julia, in the meetings that we've had so far. Katie, I don't know if there's anything that you see on this draft that's missing, given the work that you've already done. Anything jump out at you, or did that seem like it covers?
I would just mention that at the one meeting that we had previously, we had talked about this council really looking at our work more of K through 12 rather than just focusing primarily at the high school. And I think if the collective agreement is that we should be focusing at the high school, then I think it's helpful, and I think that it will help guide the discussion. But I just want to mention that based off of the previous conversations, we had just really, I believe that we had felt as a group that if we're looking to be able to talk about athletes or talk about kind of what the expectation was going to be for our students, that we really wanted to make sure that that was a practice that was that started at the elementary level and with our youth and recreational sports. So I guess that just being said, I don't know if there's some value in maybe updating the purpose of the council to review and make recommendations based off of the district's athletic program, or if we want to keep it more targeted just to the high school.
Thank you. Make a note of that.
I like that idea, Kate. Or can I comment now, Danielle?
Sure.
I like that idea, Katie. And I think that if we do add the elementary youth and recreational sports, that we need to add somebody to the council that represents that group, whether it be however it may be. But I think somebody, especially there's no one there from that younger age demographic. So whether it be somebody from, that's doing soccer, youth hockey or whatever, but if that's included, I'd like to see that. And then I think this is a great idea. My only area of concern is that I feel like the people for membership, it's really a top-down approach to who's on it. And I'd like to kind of have an avenue where it's bottom up, where the student athletes get to pick who's representing them on this committee. And also parents get to pick who's representing them, whether, there's 3 DHS students. Is there any way we could have the athletes maybe pick 2 of their peers that could be represented, or at least one? And then for the parent, I'd like to see it almost how the school councils do it, where parents have to go through a nomination process, put in a blurb as to why they're interested in it and why they would be a good choice. And then the parents again pick who would represent them on this council. I think it's a really important position, and I really would like to see a more bottom-up approach, less administration picking and more the people and the students who it directly affects.
So even more than, because right now the parent is recommended by the school council, which is made up of parents and
Only made up of a few, I think maybe 3 or 4. And I think, and not necessarily, there may not be one parent on there. It's not a guarantee that a student athlete's parent is on that. So I feel like if people, just like for the school council, if people can nominate, say, I want to do this and this is why, I think that might provide us a better choice.
I think you could also consider, it says here that the parent is recommended by the high school council. Doesn't necessarily have to be a member of the school council. So,
I
know,
know,
if
I'm
the
just
school-
saying that that's a small group of people on the school council. You're talking 3 to 4 people. I served on the school council. I don't think there was more than 4 parents. So and none of them could have an athlete. So.
Right, but they are elected to their positions, is my point. So they represent, so they could run what you're suggesting, they could run a nomination process.
I think that would be fantastic.
But I think that having school council involved, because the parents there are elected representatives of the parents of the school, that's kind of quite legitimate kind of representation, and how they would like to organize their recommendation process. Maybe they can work with Mr. Donovan to decide how that's going to work. And the students, they're selected, again, they're recommended by the school council, or student council rather. And again, they might not be members of student council, but student council might have its own ideas about how it wants to select those 3 representatives. So maybe we should check with them.
My concern would be that we have a parent and 3 students that don't represent, or that aren't participants in athletics at all. And I feel like, how can we have a true understanding of that athlete, or an athlete in Duxbury, if we don't have any sort of representation of a student athlete on our athletic advisory council? I just think being an athletic advisory council, it would only make sense to ensure that at least one of those students is a student athlete.
So if we change the language to be, because I was thinking the same thing, that it would be student athletes that were interested in participating, and then the school council would determine the mechanism. But if we change the wording on the draft right now to say one parent who is a parent of a student athlete, that goes through that nomination process through the school council, and then the same for the students. 3 DHS students who are 3 DHS student athletes recommended by the DHS student council. Would that satisfy that? Because I wasn't imagining that they were members that weren't actively involved with the athletic program.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
And I'm okay if one of those 3 don't play sports at all, because, that would be I think that would also be a great sounding board to have a non-athlete on there to get their perspective on it. I just want to make sure there's some representation. That's all. And I'm sorry, but the one coach from the high school, I think that should be voted on again by their peers. So the coaches all put in one vote for the coach that they want representing them on the athletic advisory council. So that, again, it's not top down, it's more bottom up. I wish I wasn't the only one talking so much. Where's Kelly when I need her? Really?
Danielle, can I just make one more suggestion on the list of members? So it says specifically that it should be the director of the recreation department. I was wondering if we could potentially modify that just to say a staff member from the recreation department, just in the instance that the director didn't have the capacity to serve on the committee.
Yeah.
If there's another representative that he could potentially, or they could potentially put forth.
Yep, that sounds good. I'm making notes for the suggestions that have come up, so definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you want to put it in the policy, but as far as the screening committees go, I haven't been involved with that because I'm a member of school committee, and I felt that it was important that I not be involved because I'm a member of school committee. So I don't know how others feel about that, but I think there's, school committee members shouldn't be involved in personnel decisions. So it's possibly best to distance the school committee member from participating in the screening committees for coaches. I don't know if you want to add that.
Maybe what we would do is say that one member of school committee who would not participate in screening processes, we could kind of qualify that in that school committee member role.
Yeah, or under the number 2, you could just say, with the exception of the school committee member, members will participate in screening or something like that, just to make sure there's no kind of crossover.
Great discussion again. Good. So are we good on this one then?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So I think our next agenda item is moving to comments for the public. The comments from the public session of the meeting is an opportunity for members of the community to address issues of concern about policy, budget, or administrative matters, or share ideas about how we can work together to improve the Duxbury Public Schools. We value your input and respect divergent views. We only ask that you limit your remarks to 2 minutes and refrain from airing grievances with individual members of the school community. Thank you. Dr. Klingeman, if you'll help me with the technical piece. Looks like we have Ms. Cosgrove.
Right. Ms. Cosgrove, you might be able to talk now. Why don't you, let me see if I did that.
Here we go.
I think you did yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Hi, how are you, Ms.
Hi.
Cosgrove?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I had a quick question. With the CDC's recent update on masks in schools, when is the district going to come out with their recommendations or expectations for September? And will you consider doing it in a timeline for students that haven't been vaccinated to become vaccinated?
So I can just
Okay.
let you know that the CDC
Okay.
updated their guidelines. However, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education hasn't decided and given any guidance to school districts as to what the fall mandates will be for mask wearing. And so certainly as soon as the Department of Education, which is what we fall under, and that DESE has been working with using the CDC guidelines, but nothing has been shared with us as of yet. I will certainly share with the community as soon as we have more information there. So I'm just kind of waiting on a daily basis to see when that guidance will come out. I was at a meeting last week with the commissioner and he did not give any indication that that was coming in the near future. So I would guess that by mid-August, we'll have a better picture of what the expectations will be for mask wearing in the fall.
Thank you.
Right. Just. Katie, you should be able to speak.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can. Good evening.
Katie Chesney, I just wanted to echo a few of Kristen's comments with the Athletic Advisory Committee and say that I think the coaches and the current athletes at the high school should have a vote or a say, recommendation, however you want to put it, into, who will be representing them on this committee. And also, one point I know you had said, trying to get kind of a trickle down effect into the youth sports in town. And I know most of the youth sports are not associated with the schools, I guess. They're all separate entities. I know I'm on the football board, the youth football board, and we try and mirror, the high school athletic guidelines and that sort of thing. But as far as I know, most of those are separate entities. It's not middle school football or middle school basketball. It's a separate nonprofit that kind of runs everything. And lastly, I was just wondering when we were going to get an update on the open high school coaching positions for boys hockey, girls hockey, and I think girls basketball. That's it.
Okay, thank you. We don't have Mr. Donovan with us this week. Do we have any update on those 3 positions?
I can give a brief update, and Tony,
Yeah.
Tony, would you like to do that? I know you spoke
Yeah.
to.
I met with Ms. Donovan today, so the postings for the boys hockey coach and athletic director are closing out. He's going to conduct those interviews next week. The athletic director, boys hockey coach, and girls basketball coach. And then follow up, he'll be wrapping up. The posting for the girls hockey coach is on the MIA website. That closes out next day or 2. And he'll follow up that process immediately after. So he anticipates having the coaching vacancies filled within the next 2 weeks.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like no more hands are up for public comment. So we have, the last item is to vote to approve the contract for interim superintendent. We've already reviewed the terms. I was wondering if I can have a motion to approve that contract as discussed.
I move that we approve the contract as discussed for the interim superintendent.
Second.
Do a roll call. Julia?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Shannon, aye. Great. Okay, I think that ends our meeting.
Congratulations, Danielle.
Yes.
Lingaman, congratulations.
Yeah,
You're official.
thanks for making me official tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Okay. And Katie, I'll stop by probably late tomorrow afternoon to sign it if you have it. I think you probably have a copy of it. Yeah,
I do.
great, thank you. Okay, all right. With that, we will get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We lost Matt. Okay. To do a roll call. Julia,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Shannon, aye. Oh, wait.
Oh, there he is.
We'll let Matt do his roll call vote. Matt, we just did roll call, motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Excellent. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.